Hello, everyone. Welcome to Relative Pitch Episode 3, Rheingold. My name is Michael Brown, and I'm joined with the fabulous Lauren Green and the amazing Anthony Morris. We hope that you all loved our second episode and talking about our life during COVID-19. This week, we wanted to talk about the first chapter of Alex Ross's book, Wagnerism. This chapter is titled Rheingold. Lauren, how about you tell us a summary of this chapter?
Hey, yeah, so this chapter basically, Rheingold, that kind of gives it the explanation already, but it is Alex Ross kind of explaining, going through um, Wagner and the ring cycle in terms of the people around him. There's a lot of talk of is it Friedrich Nietzsche, who is one, we will talk a lot more about him a little bit later on, but it was one of, he was a huge, like Wagner was his mentor through life for a certain part of it. And we'll talk about how that ended later on. And so it's a lot about Wagner and Nietzsche and the ring cycle, kind of all in one. Like that's kind of the trinity of this chapter. And also talking a little bit about the Beirut Festival, which I call Wagner Coachella. I'll tell you why later. And so basically, with it being about the ring cycle, we know that a lot of our musician friends may already know kind of what that is. So Michael's going to kind of talk to us a little bit about what the ring cycle actually is.
So who would have guessed it? The ring cycle is about a ring. It's about a golden ring. The gold was stolen from the Rhine River, Rheingold, stolen from the Rhine Maidens. So overall view, it's just the opera is entitled, the cycle is entitled The Ring of the Nibelung. That's how I pronounce it. It's probably wrong, but it's fine. And it's about a magical ring that has the power to rule the world. That's the short, sweet, simple part. Just little facts. It took Wagner over 30 years to write it. He wrote the libretto, which is a story from the end backwards, and then he wrote the music in chronological order. A big thing about this whole thing is leitmotifs, which are typically attached to certain characters or moods, and it reoccurs over the entire cycle. Why do I keep saying cycle instead of opera? Well, this cycle, the ring cycle, is actually composed of 4 different operas. And if they were played back to back to back, it'll be about 15 to 17 and a half hours. Doesn't that sound fun? It doesn't. It's long. And the operas are in German, and I speak English. I'm very bad at translating, so I'm going to pass it off to my friend, Anthony Morris, to correctly pronounce these 4 operas.
Okay, so let me just preface this. I was a core major and I took addition class. I made a B in that class. So if this is a little off, go ahead and shoot me with a bullet. It's fine. But the 4 operas, the first one is called Das Rheingold. The second one is Die Valkyrie, which is literally the Valkyrie. The third one is Siegfried. And then the last one is Gute Dämmerung, which really just means Twilight of the Gods. So in English, you have the Rheingold, as Michael said, the gold from the Rhine River, the Valkyrie, Siegfried, which is the actual person's name, and then the last one is Twilight of the Gods.
Yeah, so that's kind of like if you had no idea what Rheingold or the ring cycle was, it's a little bit of factoids about that. So let's just go ahead and jump into this. There is a lot in this chapter. This was a very lengthy chapter, as it should be. You cannot summarize Rheingold or talk about it in just a few sentences, even if we try. And so, like I said, one of the main elements of this chapter was Friedrich Nietzsche. I hope I am saying that right. If not, please tell me. And so he was a German philosopher, cultural critic, composer, poet, philologist. And so this was a very intellectual man. And he came into Wagner's life, and he would, like, Wagner was his mentor. He really looked up to him a lot. Like, he believed in this man a lot. Their relationship was very interesting. I wouldn't say it reminded me of Shostakovich and Stalin, because that was very different, but it was very much like it was weird, and we just talked about this because at the end of their lives, especially when before Wagner passed, they weren't in good standings with each other for different reasons, but they had a very different viewpoint on life, like humanities, art in general. And the way they would talk about their differences is not by actually talking to each other about it, but by writing whole essays saying what they didn't like about the other person's writing, art, yada yada yada. This is like subtweeting nowadays. If you are on Twitter, youngins, hello, you know what that means. So instead of going on Twitter and just going, wow, some people just really don't know how to yada yada yada, they would just actually write full length, almost dissertations about what they didn't like about each other's works. This is really weird, and I don't understand it, but it's interesting to see how they chose to do things back then. And Anthony, do you have anything to add on with their toxic relationship?
Yeah, like their whole relationship was very toxic. Just reading this one chapter, I mean, when Niche first came into Wagner's life, he was young. It was really kind of, and even in the book, it was kind of like father stepson or father son type of thing going on, where Niche obviously looked up to Wagner, worshipped a lot of his things, but over the course of years spent together, as any human, you'll start to find different things that you don't like about that person. I mean, whether you're in a relationship or it's just a friendship or whatever, you'll find those things. And I think over a period of time, Niche really started to see some things in Wagner that he just didn't like. I mean, and it got really toxic. I mean, a whole conversation could be delved into about their relationship and how the toxic mentorship can go, how a person knows that they're a mentor to a person, and they kind of take that for granted. I mean, Niche became Wagner's publicist, became his right hand man. Even in the book, it says Wagner told Niche, you were literally like my number really three. First was Cosima, his wife, Wagner's wife, and then Niche. Even at one point in the book, we saw how Wagner said, I don't want anybody over my house this weekend. But he extended a whole invitation to Niche to come that weekend. And that was the weekend that Wagner's son was delivered. So here's a personal family thing that Wagner told the whole everybody, I don't want anybody over, but Niche was that one person he wanted to be there for his son's delivery. So it was this back and forth thing. And at the end of their lives, it really started to seep into, I don't know if it was hatred or just dislike, where Lauren just said they wrote essays back. The whole subtweeting thing, going back and forth, like it was powerful. And these essays, when I say essays, not like 5 paragraphs and that's it. I mean like long pages of things that they disliked about each other. And then unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, Wagner passed and really kind of did a mental thing to Niche. He really, I guess, took it to heart. And I really believe something mentally happened to him because he started writing in very confused language. He even sent a whole letter to Cosima, which is Wagner's wife, and said, to my darling wife, Cosima Wagner. So when I read that, I was like, do he think that he's Wagner? Wagner's since passed, but is this something where he regrets how the last part of his years went? And here he goes trying to, redo some things. So their whole friendship, relationship, everything else, it was very toxic, very, very toxic. And for that to be back then, and now we have subtweeting and we still deal with, toxic mentorships. I tell people all the time, be careful who you call your mentor because it really can go 2 ways. It can be really good and that mentor is a very great one, or they know that they're your mentor and they're going to use and abuse that. So from Anthony to anybody who's listening to this, be careful of who you are and be aware before you go out and call somebody your mentor. Okay. Michael, Lauren, did you have anything else for Mr. Niche or anything?
Not in particular about about both of them. I think I have it written down. Like, I think the fall of men like them are their egos. Like, yes, this is age. Everyone's like, oh, I'm so philosophical, and I have these really big thoughts and really deep thoughts, and we already know that Wagner had a huge ego. But I believe the this present, or the knowledge that they possessed or they thought they possessed, I'll say that. I believe it starts eating at you. I can't imagine thinking about things that deep in that time period where there was like nothing. We have other things to distract us now, like TV, social media, everything. But if you are constantly trapped in those type of deep thoughts, you're going to start questioning everything in your life, I feel like. And I feel like that's why they kind of turned against each other. Because it's like, and I don't know, there are a lot of elements in this that we'll talk about later on, but I absolutely give the reasoning of the destruction of great minds and great figures in history to their egos, into their minds. And that's like the hunger to want more out of what you already know, I guess, if that makes any sense. But the philosophical point of views, yes, there it is. That's a word. And it's funny because like in television and like on social media, like you'll have the character who's like, oh, I'm a sociology or psychology major, and they're the ones who are always like, but isn't life just like a game? And like things that everyone else is just like grown, put hand in head, like, oh, this person's talking crazy again. But instead of that, they thought that was like the best. Like they would just sit in a room and talk like that. I cannot imagine. It's great in reading sometimes, but I'm not surprised that their relationship failed the way that it did. But going on, there was. Sorry, Anthony.
I just had one thing about the ego. I mean, we can talk about ego in a whole episode in its own. I mean, we have seen time after time, musician, non-musician, actor, politician, where their ego gets so big, they think that they are untouchable. And it's when you get to that point in your life that is actually the most poignant time for you to be tumbled down and be humbled. Okay. um Wagner, Niche, their egos was definitely a big thing. I mean, at the end of the book we start to see how with the Beirut Festival of how the ego-ness, the reason we to this day see classical music as such a, oh, let me button up everything and let's go to a concert. We see now where that kind of started from, and the Beirut Festival really kind of did that. When I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about that later, but we see the ego and Wagner kind of realizing who Wagner is. That there is the name Wagner and then the brand Wagner are two separate things now. So this is really getting to the point of Wagner as a brand, which to this day, people are still making brands off of their names. Just go look at Real Housewives of yada, 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 or the Three Sisters on E! Network, brands. That's it. This was the original, I'm branding my name to get to, to a big platform. So something when I was reading this, I was like, look, how I can relate so many things was happening now to what was happening then and where it kind of started from a little bit.
Yeah, and like I mean, since we're already on that topic, let's just talk about Beirut, which I formally acknowledged as Wagner Coachella. And the reason I say this is, am I wrong? Like, I mean, it was kind of, and what Anthony was talking about with the branding, that was a huge like thing. Like, I think that was very innovative for the time. Like, oh, I'm gonna sell things with my face on it, my name on it. If you think about modern concerts, when you go to a concert, what do you expect? Oh, I'm gonna buy a T-shirt with the band or the artist's name on it, or mugs and cups and stickers and all that thing. So that was huge, and it's a technique that we are still using to this day, like in modern times. Um, but Bayreuth was more had more innovations, excuse me, than that. So before this time period, or pre this time, music wasn't. It was kind of like the background. Like you had concerts and shows, and people were talking through it. Imagine you were like sitting watching the New York Phil, and the people next to you are just talking about dinner and everything. You'd be like, what's wrong with you? That was a newly found cultural thing at this time. And the way they were able to do this, the way that Wagner had this happen, is dimming the lights. Like he actually set in place that the lights would actually be dimmed, and I think that they actually talked about it in the book how there was a mishap the first one where it was actually just pitch black, which is funny because you go to the theater now, that's kind of what it is besides the screen. It is absolutely like, because your entire attention, you're looking at the screen. Or at the concert hall, same thing, all of your attention is on the stage. And so this caused people to go, oh, wait, the lights are turning off. What's happening, and then you're locked in there. And then the new innovation, oh, Anthony, you got it.
Well, I just want to be like, honestly, I don't think I could ever really focus if the lights did not dim. Like if I'm being honest, and I want to hear from everybody else who's listening. Could you focus if you went to go see the next Avengers? I know Avengers is over, but what if you went to see that and like the lights didn't dim, it is completely sunny and lights are in, like what could you still focus? That's my question because me personally, I'd be looking over here, I'd be looking over there. Ooh, what's so and so doing down there? I don't think I could really focus through that. Could you focus, Lauren? Michael, could you focus through all of that?
Well, I mean, honestly, no. And I also get distracted when it's completely dark. But especially with Wagner, he had this like grandiose idea. That's his thing, is drama and music. Not just music, not just drama. That both of them. And that's why I think he dimmed them. He was like, y'all gonna pay attention to what is on this stage. Y'all gonna pay attention. Because this is drama. I am giving you like midday television, soap opera drama with midnight amazing music. Like that's it. He's doing it all at one time. So I understand he dimmed the lights, but I'm over here like I can't do anything with lights on. Mm-mm.
And this makes sense because we know like how highly Wagner thought about this his work, and so he really came into the idea of you are going to look on stage the entire time. You are going to listen to what I have to say, which that's absolutely what happened. And besides dimming the lights, another thing that kind of came out of this was the not clapping whenever we wanted to, or not clapping after specific movements, or like after like someone gave an aria or something like that. So concert etiquette is finally coming into play. Like we're actually learning how to be active, like audience listeners, respectful audience members. And this is something that as musicians we learn as like from a young age, because like during we have to, if we're in band, you have to listen to your other band, the other bands of the school, so you learn, oh, if they're doing a full movement piece, like you are a different like multi-movement work, then you have to wait. And that's always a thing that I remember. It was more when I was young, because now I'm surrounded by people in my family like who they know now. They just usually know either to wait until someone else does it, or they understand, oh, it's a 3 movement work. They're gonna stop, move their papers, and that'll be okay. That was the first movement, yada yada yada. It gets a little confusing because some movements are a taka, so they'll just go straight into it. But again, just some endings, some conclusions of pieces, you kind of know the endings of them. So it's like that had to be the ending. Like that's just amazing. So this was a new innovation that was brought to us through this festival. That now we don't have people who are running like, oh, that aria was amazing. Like, let me just clap right in the middle of this and just lose half of the next scene because I'm too busy clapping. And like in jazz, it still have, but that's different because that's a completely different world that I'm sure we'll talk about later on, like at different episodes. But now for classical music and classical opera, all these things, it has now set a precedence of, okay, you wait until a set ending to actually do an applause.
So my question is, that was started back then, 1876. I know now I know some ensembles who are breaking away from that structured concert etiquette. What are some of y'all thoughts about that? Because I mean, let's say we are playing a multi-movement work, and let's say movement one is a phenomenal ending, and some people feel overjoyed to clap. Now, I mean, even back then, it talks about in the book, like after a movement, a person started to clap and they were hissed by Wagner to like hush. But now, what if, I mean, I know in jazz, you know, after a soloist plays, clapping, but in a classical setting, like either in wind band or orchestra, after a soloist plays, there's no clapping. What do we think about that? I mean, literally in every other genre, if we go to pop songs, after let's say a guitar player had like a solo, if they are you know with the vocalist or something and they had a solo, people are gonna clap. In gospel music, after a soloist sings, clapping, or if they feel moved by the spirit, they're going to start doing something. But in classical music, it's really become kind of, you have to be quiet, you have to do this, you have to do this. And some people say that it's kind of turned a lot of people off from this genre of classical music. So what do y'all think?
Before I because I want to hear Michael's opinion on this, but I'm reading it now, and it says at a later performance, someone shouted "Bravo" during the chorus of the Flower Maidens and was hissed. That someone turned out to be the composer. It was Wagner who literally no he Wagner was the one who said "Bravo," and he got hissed by an audience member. That was not his. So this is kind of telling you that his intention wasn't to really get to this level of like silence and like seriousness, but the audience turned that way, and that he himself was his stat for saying an exclamation in the audience of his own work. I think that's really funny.
That is funny. And I think part of that with like Beirut and everything was because how the house was built. How like everybody was angled toward the stage. The stage was very deep. You couldn't even see the orchestra. They were under the stage, and that's the way it all worked. I think just the whole setting of the opera house made it into something higher and more like, oh, I am rich and fancy for watching 15 hours of opera. But that's I know San Francisco Symphony with Michael Tilson Thomas. He was starting to encourage people to just let your feelings out while you hear something, and he is like regarded as like the new age Bernstein because he's just so smart. I mean, Bernstein did all those children's concerts, and he would relate classical music to popular music, and that's how he got people invested in classical music. So I think with a degree, we should all just like, hey, that was good, blah blah, clap clap clap, but not be like overly about it, because we couldn't do the whole pop music clap and stuff, because you would literally miss like Bartok's Concerto for an Orchestra. You clap after you hear like half the duets in the second movement, you ain't gonna hear the rest of the part. And so like I think there can be a level of it, like within like your personal group, like you're with, or maybe your person you're standing next to, like, oh my God, isn't that flute amazing? Yeah. And then like, and keep going. But like, wow! Yeah, I don't think that could ever be in classical music.
True. And I think with the question, it goes with the type of music as well. So maybe not so much with, let's say, a Beethoven symphony, no. But what about Omar Thomas's Come Sunday? Or he has a movement in one of his pieces called Shout, which is literally supposed to resemble how a Pentecostal church is during service. So in that moment, I think it would be necessary, or not necessary, but it would be acceptable to let your feelings show and, go, because that's how it is, in the Pentecostal church. So I think with those things, and I guess the type of music, but I do totally agree with you about let's not just go all the way out and start being like, yeah, let's go, but know exactly where you are.
Yeah, I agree with Michael in that sense of like, or both of y'all in the sense of if I hear someone play a flute soloist play the opening of Prelude to the Afternoon of Fawn, and I just like go crazy. I'm just like, what? Like everyone would like want me out of the theater immediately. Like you're gonna miss every because it's such a delicate like landscape and it's all about the colors and everything. So I think the point of waiting until the end is because you're not allowing yourself to escape the setting that the composer wanted to put you in during it. Because you should, in my like in my head, that's why I remember going to a concert one time and my breath. I think everyone's breath was just taken away. We no one clapped for like the first 3 seconds. Like we were so lost in what we had just heard. We were like, I'm at a concert. Oh my gosh! Like let me start clapping. You know what I mean? And so like music is really supposed to, it's not supposed to be, oh like good job, you gotta, it's like no, it is supposed to take you somewhere. Like I'm in a history of orchestra class and we're doing a lot of assignments that are in his goal for us is to look for excellency in recordings. And so in my every time I write something, I'm like the reason why I think this is the more excellent or an excellent recording is because I was transported somewhere. My instinct wasn't to after the end of the recording go, because who am I doing that for? And the only reason we do it in those concert settings is to give respect to the orchestra. And so I think it's fine to wait until the end because one thing, this type of music wasn't written to have an applause at the end of every solo, every major section. You know what I mean? Like jazz solo, usually jazz solos, like, oh, they have a solo, everyone's go crazy, and you're not going to miss the next solo afterward. People know to clap really quickly and stop because that is a part of their culture. I'm scared that if people try to do this now, you will have kids going into the theater, people going to the theater, and like one solo will end and they'll try to clap and then you've missed half the next solo, or it just kind of breaks. Because for me, when I'm in a theater and I'm listening in a movie or watching a performance, if if someone crinkles something, someone's phone, a baby, any of that, I am completely thrown out of the mood. Like whatever soundscape or land I put myself into, completely obliterated because of said baby or phone or crinkle.
I just remember, I think it was us three. We went to go see an ASL performance. Yes, yes. We went to go see an ASL performance, and there was this lady. Bless her heart, but she really could have got some work right then and there. Cause like, and I think it was Appalachian Spring, Copeland's work, and we were very excited to hear it. And she has like peppermint paper, and she's just making it very loud. And mind you, it is so quiet. And if anybody's ever been to an ASL performance, you know how the hall is. So we're sitting up in like the balcony section, and it is dead silent. And all I hear for probably an entire minute is her messing with paper, crinkling it up. And all I remember is me, Michael, Lauren. We just like looking at her, and it was very, everyone was looking at her. And then I'll never forget, there was another time somebody was coughing, and it just kept coughing. And another person, like down the way, got a cough drop out of their own pocket and was like, hand this to that lady down there. Like that's how it was. So funny because we were sitting behind them. So I'm watching this. I'm supposed to be listening, but this whole drama going on was probably some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen in my life. It was hilarious. But again, I think you have to know the setting that you're in. The setting really, really, really sets the mood. And also your conductor or the people who are there, they would set that mood. So like if you go to a jazz concert, like if you were going to like a big jazz concert, big band jazz concert, usually they'll have a conductor there, and which will turn to the audience and say clap. Or if I was conducting a group and I wanted you to clap, I would turn to you and do this to signal that you clap. But it is very interesting, and I think in that moment is okay. Do not go to performances and get too involved and you start wooing and everything, because then as a performer and as a conductor, I'm really going to be upset. And because you never know. Sometimes we are recording for different things. So we might be recording to send off to a contest, or we're recording to go to like our state conference or the national conference or anything. So each performance we hold as a high regard. So please, 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 this is not us telling you to feel the spirit and go clap. This is saying there is a time and a place for that.
And also with that, with how with jazz soloists, it's usually you clap after that solo. For classical, usually what happens is like they pick everyone up and say everyone stand up, and then the conductor walks off, and everyone knows to sit down. They come back on, then they acknowledge the soloist, and so that is kind of a cultural thing that classical musicians were like, okay, well, even though you won't get that applause, that praise, that respect while you're doing after your solo, like during the piece, you will get that afterwards. And I promise, if it is a solo that you played it, like you played it, people are gonna remember and go, absolutely, like you deserve this, like this is for you. And so it's just like it's about time. It's like placement, and so it's like, does it mean more because it happened right after, or does it mean less because it happened later on? I don't think so. I absolutely think if I did a recital and then a month later someone randomly like sees me for the first time since then and says, I just remember like watching your recital, it was amazing, like I truly enjoyed it, like that's gonna be just as important and like nice to me, like at that time, that as it would have been then. Like I don't think that's the time, like over time, and I'm sure composers, feel the same way. Like they'll have music that's been written for years, and someone they'll have students come up to them who they're working with, and they'll say, I love this piece of yours. Like it's one of my favorites. I'm sure to them they're like, wow, that means so much to me, regardless if it was written the day before or 10 years ago. You know what I mean? And so I think that I guess it's a very cultural thing. I think, and whoever the conductor, that group, whatever they set into place, absolutely is what you should follow when you go there. But yeah, so this is a huge innovation that was brought to us by this festival, and we have it to this day, and it's still being talked about now. There's a lot to unpack in this chapter. A lot of things that have been said, quotes that I want to go off. Something that, and Michael, if you want to talk about leitmotif again, just to give another, before I talk about what he mentioned in the book, what it actually is for our non-musical friends who are listening in.
Oh yeah. So the easiest way, so leitmotif was popularized by Wagner. It was a thing before Wagner, but it was popularized by Wagner because in these operas, 2-3 hour operas, what do we watch now? Movies. So best way to think about this, there's two examples. Jaws. Every time a shark pops up on that TV, you're going to hear ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-da, 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 like the Jaws thing, right? Or Star Wars, over the course of all the movies, which there's only really 6 that are important. You'll hear like Darth Vader's March to the Sith. You'll hear like Leia's theme, and it always pops back when either the memory of that person's important, or the person showing up, or we should think about that character. And sometimes it's a mood. It's not
Harry Potter. Don't forget Harry Potter's Hedwig
thing, but Star Wars and Jaws, they came first.
Yeah, so that's kind of what a leitmotif is. So it's supposed to be something that reminds you of a specific, maybe a person, a place, a thing. It's kind of like that. What's funny about the leitmotif is it was actually one of Wagner's students who I think coined that, who brought that term to life. And Wagner actually didn't care for it because he actually preferred to those leitmotifs as melodic moments and basic motifs, but not dramatic moments. So he thought it kind of took away from the music itself when you say, "Oh, this is only being played because the sword is coming out or the ring is coming out." But to us, it makes a lot of sense because, like Michael said, like in Star Wars, when I hear Leia's thing, I'm like, where is she? Where is she? Because I know she is coming, or they're talking about her. That is another big thing because it's an allusion to something that isn't there, and that is how you bring forth those ideas is by using music. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. Um, and so a lot of in movies the composers have started using that a lot to show to bring this new sense of characters in their in to bring music more to the forefront of the movie. It's actually important because it's like, oh, that sound means Darth Vader's coming, or that the Sith, all this stuff. So that is always a word that is associated with Wagner, even though it's funny because he actually did not like the word. He wasn't even the one who came up with it, but it became something that is associated with him. So within this, there was and I think Anthony could talk about this a little bit. Niche, I think he brought around a friend of his around Wagner, and we're talking about Wagner and his music greatness, but we also have to kind of remember a little bit about the non-greatness about him too, the things we kind of want to brush over a little bit, but not in this. We actually don't want to brush over it. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy that goes on in this. Anthony, if you want to jump in and talk about that.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about is Niche. This was after really I call it their breakup. This is the middle ground when they were cordial with each other, but they weren't like closest friends anymore. So Niche was living, I think it was like on the Amalfi Coast. He was living with some of his friends. One was a Jewish man. And both of the Wagners, both Wagner and his wife, they were very hesitant of him because he was a Jewish man, which we know the Wagners and being anti-Semitite and all these things, we know that. And we see that. But then let's go back to when he started the Beirut Festival. He said it out loud that it's for everyone to be this and to, all of this. But really behind all of that, he meant German people. He meant really everybody minus Jewish people. There was something he wrote called Das Judentum in der Musik, which is basically Jewishness in music in 1850. He called Felix Mendelssohn and Giacomo Meyerbeer, which are two Jewish composers, famous in music, especially Mendelssohn. He said that they are still imitators of tradition and or agents of capitalist greed. So here, let's go back to him being petty. Let's go back to him being petty, writing an entire essay about specifically these two composers who were at this time famous for their works. But here he go, subtweeting again about them just because they're Jewish. And throughout this, we see some of his nationalistic side of German proud and we're German, we need to get rid of the things of that. He first wrote the Jewishness and music under like a pseudonym, so not his name. But he felt so strongly about that years later, he re-released it under his own name to ensure that it was never forgotten or excused. So it's a difference when
he meant it. That's what I meant. He meant it.
Truly, he meant that. He meant that with his whole heart. He meant that because when somebody puts something out and it's not their name, we look at it like, okay, but when you put it out with your name, everything is just right there. We look at you like, oh, you really mean this right now. He means this. And we also, go through that. And later he tells Liszt he has an enormous desire to commit acts of artistic terrorism, which I'm like, okay, these sound real, real problematic. And this is part of why we're doing this book is because some of the problematic things Some people like to shun it away. Some people don't like to talk about it, but we need to talk about this. And the whole discussion at the end of the day is, are we just going to let it go and go on to the next thing or not? And with this, though, the whole hypocrisy going on with this of like, I created a festival for everybody and everybody to come and promote music and see the great things that I'm doing, and it's for everybody. But then he doesn't even want to see his ex best friends, people who he's around, because they're Jewish, or talk about another composer at the same time because they're Jewish. Is this something that we want to, keep going? Like it really confused me reading this. Mind you, this is a long chapter. So, but that was one thing that really kept in the back of my brain, like, there's a lot of hypocrisy going on right now. A lot of things are going on. Do we not like them? Do you like them? I need to know. I need an answer right now. So, what y'all think about all of that?
Yeah, it's funny because you have these great artists and everything, and they have some very interesting perspectives. And they're not only just like artists in their own, but they're also like it's also about humanity and politics and everything, which makes sense about what this title is. But Nietzsche actually had a very interesting quote from the book about like his ideas and everything. So it's temporary relapses into barbarism can rejuvenate an aging civilization. So it's basically like peace cannot exist without war. We have to do so every now and then. You need a little bit of like bad, just some just something that just comes out that's just super heinous or just awful, that brings us to the next level of, I guess, tranquility. And I guess in a sense it's true. It's very interesting to think about it that way. That in order to like we have to every now and then something tragic has to happen. And it's if we think about this summer, the things that were going on, events that led up to the social unrest in our country, it was a tragic situation, a tragic loss, an inhumane loss that inspired all of these new social warriors were born and new allies were formed, and it was amazing in terms of what we saw, like especially my generation. Like I'm very proud of my generation for what like the situations that were brought out of the negative of the things that happened this summer socially. And it is unfortunate that these things have to happen for us to get to this new level of whatever enlightenment, if we want to call it that. But it's true because we can get we'll get so used to things, we'll get so comfortable with things. Oh, that's just the way things are. Oh, he's just that way because of this, or it's just that's just their age group. That's just how they think and everything. We're done with that. I am over that. I'm over the excuse of it is what it is. No. No, not when it comes to human rights.
Again, say that again. It ain't is. We can't be
It's
saying
not what it is. It
it's
is not.
not.
It is what we make it.
Mm.
And we're at the point, especially I will keep saying this, especially Gen Z's. Shout out to y'all, seriously, because you are actually going out there and getting stuff done. Like truly, like it is. We're past the point of just being like, oh, it's just we'll complain about it, but then get nothing done. No, it's about the action. It's not about the word. It is about the action. So just side note here, please go vote. Please go vote.
Vote, vote, please.
You absolutely have the right to complain about your government and politics and everything, but until you put those grievances into action, what are you doing? What are you doing to help this situation? So this is me pleading, like seriously, like I have my absentee ballot right here ready for me to sit down, do research, and fill out and send it back in, because that is my duty. If I want to see this country better than it is currently, that is what I have to do. That is what we all have to do. So please go vote, my young friends, my young colleagues. So yeah, and this, there have been so many initiatives by social media platforms and everything that are always like, "Have you voted? Have you voted?" There was a huge celebrity. I don't know if you know who David Dobrik is, who just did like I don't know if it was he did a meet and greet or something where, but he got a lot of fans to come out and got like thousands of like our generation people to sign up to like register to vote, you know. And so like use your these celebrities, it's amazing to see them using their platforms to encourage the youth, because they usually know who is my audience, who are my fans. Younger generation people, your fans are going to be other younger generation people. So, and that is who that is our presence in voting has been sad, truly has been sad. And I get it because I was young and I was like, I don't like politics. I don't like talking about politics. I don't want to vote because it just makes me sick. Nothing's going to change. Yeah, nothing will change if you have that attitude. Absolutely. Nothing is going to change if we have that attitude. I want to see it. I want to see change. I want to see difference. And so, yeah, and like things are going to happen even in better societies. Things are going to happen where something bad will inspire something good, but still, that doesn't mean we have to wait until that something bad happens to cause more good to happen. So,
One thing, what we have learned from summer 2020 is that change needs to happen. Change needs to happen. And the only way change will happen is starting with you. You are the only one that can make that change happen. So please, 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 this is our little PSA in the middle of this podcast to go out and vote. Because what we're seeing from this book, from right here, just in the first chapter, is that the more people have stayed silent, the more things have just kind of festered on like below the surface. And the thing about festering below surface, one day it's just gonna bust. And when it busts, it's not good at all. So let's change this history. Let's change what has been done in the past. Let's change it for a better future. Let's not think about ourselves, but let's think about our kids in the future. Do we want our children, our grandchildren, to be going through the same things we are going through right now? And the only way to change that is starting right now.
Also, on a side note, for coming from someone who hates talking about politics, all this other stuff, like, yeah, it's not about the every 4-year election either. Like, you have to vote in between because, honestly, love the president, but the president does not make laws. The Congress controls all of that. And they can even overpower a veto. So if we get the right people in Congress, not only, of course, the head of the nation, but it also matters in between every 4-year election, too. And even elections for your sheriff, for your governor, for your mayor. Like, all those matter. I used to think everything didn't matter. Like, it doesn't affect me. I play trumpet. We're fine. No, just go do your duty. It's your duty. It's your right. I mean, a lot of people can't do it because they're not allowed or they're shunned from it. So just do your part like we all have to do.
yeah, and so going off of that, there's a quote in here from Wagner himself that says, from one of his essays in 1849, "Revolution, all that exists must go under, all that is ends." What, first of all, duh, but I mean, second of all, like that makes sense, right? Because revolution is to completely go, okay, done. Like we're done with this. We are now implementing this in. So I mean, I feel like culture, life has just gone. There have been so many different revolutions that have brought us to this point, and there are even some revolutions that we don't even realize were revolutions or are maybe currently going on that are revolutions. But it's true, because in order if we want to stop a certain system of practices that have been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years, something has to be snipped out. Something has to go. And unfortunately, there are people who want to hold on to these past things, that we can't get to this next level of what we want to call enlightenment until some of these things are just completely that doesn't have to be physically, but beliefs, ideas, practices, all of these things that certain people are holding on to the past. We just because it's how it has been done before doesn't mean it's what we have to continue to do. Just like Anthony was talking about, is clapping during pieces something we want to start doing again, like doing in general again. And it's like we have to think about these things if we want to continue progressing. It's about trying new things. It's about not being scared to implement these practices. We're seeing that happens. Oh, that wasn't a great idea. Okay, I guess we'll just go back to it. But the worst is to have that idea, have that potential, and then to not act on it. That's kind of what I have to say about that. Sorry, Anthony, you got it.
Um, Revolution, the big word revolution. There have been many revolutions in the world, and small things that you might not think about were revolutions are revolutions. Civil rights movement, that was a revolution because it was an uprising of the previous thought of what it was like, and let's change something. The gay revolution, one of my favorite songs, which I was going to perform in my senior conducting recital, was "A Mother of a Revolution" by Omar Thomas, which was written about the gay revolutions of Stonewall, 1969, everything like that. So there have been revolutions, and honestly, I think right now we are living through a small revolution, a small time-wise of a revolution. What happened this summer definitely had some revolution aspects to it because it was a finally, let's stop what we're doing. Let's stop what has been happening in the past. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. And things need to change. So, what I did love about reading this book is how Wagner really took a lot of political things from what he believes and put them inside of his operas. So, one thing was he talks about capitalism and everything like that. And Das Rheingold, Albrecht had, actually found, so Albrecht is one of the characters in it, and he had found the Rheingold, but he had been held captive of it. And in the book it says he is captive to his capital and takes no pleasure in it. And that's basically like a capitalist stealing something because, some people will take something and profit it on theirs, but they will never really gain anything from it because from the get-go it was stolen anyway. And so he makes that connection between capitalism and how Albert, with the whole gold. And I sit there and I listen to a little bit of it, and reading this book, I'm seeing how many different worldly things have been put into his different operas, from a revolution to capitalism versus Marxism and everything like that. Everything is in these operas of his. And me personally, I love when a composer can take worldly things and put them into music. I mean, like I just said, A Mother Revolution with Omar Thomas. That is something very personal to him, and he took that and actually wrote a song, and he dedicated to the lost, or not lost, the trans women that were the African American trans women who were murdered or the previous year. I think it was 2018, or it might have been 2017. There were over 50 killings of Black trans women. And so that moved him to make that piece dedicated to them. And I love when that happened, because then when you listen to the music, you're like, this means something. And this goes back to clapping and not clapping. I personally would wait to the end, because you feel the difference that is making when there's a story being told and you know that story, i.e. read your program notes when you go to a classical concert, because most likely it will tell you the story. And also, as a person who write program notes, read them program notes, because I spent my time on making those program notes. So please read them. But I love when I'll take a piece and it has some historical context or it's something like that. Because to me, it just means a lot more. Um, and there's been pieces that won a Pulitzer Prize, and which was about the September 11th attacks, and it was written the next year. And you feel the different things going on. You feel the anguish and the sadness and everything like that. So I love when composers do that, and seeing how Wagner, which he is a romantic composer, this is probably one of the first time in history in music history that has started to happen, where they take things from worldly aspects and put it into the music. Because before, a lot of music was written for a party, it was written for the church, or it was only written because somebody paid them to write it for another action or something like that. So in the romantic period, that is actually when things started to really influence music. And it wasn't about I'm trying to get paid. It was more like I need to write this down because this is how I'm feeling right now. And I think that's what makes Wagner's music so so appealing to the ear, because we're always listening to like what's going on, what was he thinking about when he wrote this, which I like to listen. I will admit it. I like to listen.
Real quick, to go back to the whole program note stuff and waiting to clap, I think in classical music, like program notes are great. I hate reading. A lot of the society hates to read. I believe in classical music there will be a change, needs to be, where the conductor will have an open conversation with the audience explaining like what they're going to hear, what is this, like if you can get people in on an idea, like play a main, like get your, like the children's concert used to be with Bernstein. He used to play these motifs. Things like this, what's going to happen? It's going to do this. It's going to do this. And then all the while, I'm pretty sure the audience is engaged the whole entire time, listening for those things that is coming about. So I think there will be a change of classical music, and the conductor really like building a rapport with the audience, because then the audience is going to be more invested in each piece of each performance. So that, I think that is a big thing to do. Like, yes, the people, musicians who want to do the research and all this are going to understand what's happening, but not regular day people who, in the end, that's why we play music, is to get everybody to understand and do stuff. So I think that's going to need a change in classical music.
I definitely think that's an idea that would be really cool, like stopping and explaining. Okay, so this movement's going to be about yada yada yada. So make sure you listen out to that. And I think a lot with children's concerts, they do that a lot, because for children, it's like to make them engage and things like that. You're kind of going to want to let them know what they should be listening for. Oh, make sure you listen out for the flute, who's going to be the pretty bird, or the tuba, who's going to be the ogre. Sorry, tubist, I didn't mean to say that, but I did. But what'd you say?
Say she meant it. I mean it.
But you know what I mean. So it gives them something to look out for, so they are more engaged with it. I think with the modern, think about the last symphony concert you went to, start at 8, in about what 10, 10:15 with the intermission. Yeah, and we love our conductors, don't we? We do. They can get very long winded, and so and so all I'm gonna
Of course.
say, yes, all I'm gonna say is, yeah, keep it brief, to the point. Make sure that just say it, just talk about it, and like,
Rehearse what you going to say.
yes,
Okay. I know some conductors who will get up on there and like have a blink and then just start rambling. No, 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 no. Keep it short. If you are going to say this motif right here means the beginning of this, have them play it. Boom. All right, next. Like do not make your monologue a 5-minute thing. Please don't. Thank you.
yes. So because when Michael, when you just talked about it, it reminded me of, I don't know, I thought I related the conductor to a preacher, like a pastor, and the sense of like, oh, the pastor, you have the moments where they're just talking about the scripture or whatever, and talking about their explanation of it. And then they have times maybe they'll tell a personal story. So that is the part where it gets like the congregation to go, oh, wow, we're learning more about our pastor, or wow, yeah, and relation. So that absolutely, I get that. It makes sense. It makes it more personable to the audience. They feel like they have this relationship with the conductor now. And like I have a home church in Augusta, True North, where afterwards the pastor will come out into the atrium and talk to people, just walk up and be like, to groups, and be like, how are you doing today? How did you enjoy it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it builds this relationship and a reputation, like this is a person who we respect so much, and also this is someone who actually cares and wants to engage with the audience and everything. So absolutely, if this is something that starts to become a thing, that'll be amazing, as long as we make sure they're planned very well structured, timely, and everything, because we do love long explanations, but there has to be a compromise somewhere.
Gotta be, please. I mean, and also the more you can get the kids involved, or kids, I have kids, like my students, but if you can get the ensemble involved, so if you reference something in the song, have one of the performers play it, so that the audience hear like, oh, I know what this is now. It really starts to get them to listen. It gets them to really focused. I did that with my sixth graders like a couple weeks ago, where I said, all right, you're about to hear something and this is what it means. So put your listening ears on and be listening. And then when it came on, I was like, oh my God, Mr. Morris, that's it, that's it, that's it. And I'm like, yes. But what I'm doing is getting them to start to actually listen to music. And as a conductor of public school, we also have to train our audience, which will be parents, to listen to music as well. And just by doing something short and simple as that, really starts to get the entire audience ready for it. So all the band directors out there, I know I'm young, but that's my little tea on that. Okay, and that's it.
To talk about, just real quick, a story. We need to make concerts more of a thing. Like it's a holistic thing. Like we went to Midwest this past December, in the Air Force Band from Washington, D.C. had a whole introduction song when the conductor wasn't even there, and they had someone like speaking about them and talking about the conductor, and then he came on and just kept going. I was like, this is a whole ordeal, not just like blah, 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 intermission, blah, blah, blah. No, you have theme music and you're not even there. That's like, I was like, y'all, this
Don't
man.
forget, they had their whole narrator too. Like she was there, like, this is the United States Air Force Band. Okay, you were not mistaken at all who concert you were at. Mind you, their concert was at 8:00, so a lot of people are either sleepy, a little tipsy, or something. So they're like, where are we? But no, you knew exactly where you were. So creating that holistic thing, I like that.
I was lit. I was awesome. I was like, y'all, this is not a concert. This is a concert. Like we here to have fun.
Yeah, it was, and it was fun. It was a phenomenal concert. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I like that because it's making concerts more fun. Sometimes you're like, oh, I wish more people came to this, but to be able to sit in a very stuffy setting for 2 hours without talking, you have to be trained to do. That is something that it's like, oh, that started in sixth grade. That's the reason why I can do this now. But if you want members of like the public to feel comfortable enough to walk into a symphony hall and sit there, it can't be that stuffy. It can't be that. It's very elitist. That's a word, elitist. Of classical, like just concerts nowadays, is it feels you have to look a certain way, and you have to know what's going on and know exactly when to clap and all these things. And I don't know, it just, we hold it up to this such a high degree. Then I went to Europe like about 2-3 summers ago now, and people just walked into the hall with shorts and everything on. They're like, "Oh, this is a random. It's fine. It's a normal Friday. We're just gonna hear the symphony. Like, what are you being weird about?" And it's because it's a part of their culture. It's just not. It's not part of like the like like the higher ups culture. It's a part of everyone's culture because this music is supposed to be for everyone. And so going back a little bit more into the book and what we were talking about, there's a quote that says, "Only a denial of worldly appearances, a denial of the will to live, can bring peace to the suffering individual. He who overcomes the self will change his whole nature, rise above himself and above all suffering, and gladly welcome death." The little part is a little morbid, the last part is a little morbid, but it's kind of basically saying that if you stop caring so much about what's going on out here is when you truly find individual happiness, contentment, where you're not afraid that, oh, I'm wasting time, I have to go do, you know what I mean? It's, you get to the point in life where you have to be fine with, and I've learned this myself, and I tell this to friends all the time, you have to learn how to be okay alone by yourself, and like not alone like in like the world, but like actually like like, are you okay of just having a day where you just do your own thing, you clean, go grocery shopping, you practice, yada yada yada, and you don't feel like you have to be around other people all the time to be happy. And that's something we're all living on our own right now. Anthony lives by himself, I live by myself, Michael lives by himself, and this is the first time I think any of us are living like separated. And they were roommates for was 2 years, yes, 2 years. And so it's very different. I think we've all adjusted very well to it, but it's also made us like, we have to reflect more on ourselves and the things that we do in life, and also just learn how to fill our time and our space with things that make us happy and everything. But I think this was, and again, going back to this whole philosophical humanity, all yada yada, it's really getting into individualism of like just saying like, oh, you have to get over yourself. And truly it's true. And I think there was a quote or someone, a person, or it was an amazing performer, I don't know if it was a cellist, I think it was a cellist, I can't remember if it was Yergo Mar or not, who said that like, you, in order to play the music at the level that you desire, you have to get over yourself. You have to stop being so selfish when you play, because it is not about you. When you're playing it for your audience, you're playing it for the composer of what they themselves wanted to put into that music. So for us, and I remember leaving an audition for grad school, and I walked into my friend's practice room and went, I'm going to point out all the wrong things that I did in this piece. How toxic is that? That's crazy. Not, and of course, audition, that's like, it's a different sense of, oh, well, we're playing this because they know how it's supposed to sound. So if you mess up, that's like a ding 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 to them. But still, music overall is not supposed to be, oh, you played it wrong, it's done. Like it's done. It's about the expression. It's about what you're trying to convey to the people around you, the message that you are sending out. And so to get so wrapped up into ourselves of being like, oh, I hated that performance, yada yada yada. Like, come on. Like, we're taking the fun out of it for ourselves, personally. I think we can all relate to this, in a way.
Um, Literally, it's funny that we're talking about this now because I have been trying to instill in my sixth graders that when they make a mistake, they stop. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm stopped. And I have been trying to get them to really, I said, music doesn't stop. Does not stop. If you're playing through something and you hit the wrong note or anything like that, don't stop. Keep going. Get yourself back in line. You should know where you are. Just keep going. And that also is a thing for life. If something knocks you down, don't stop. Don't let that get you. Keep going. I'll give you a day. Take your day. Go home. Redo it. Go get take a shower. Have a whole myself day. But then tomorrow, you got to be back on the ground. Back on the grind, because you have to. Life keeps going. Life never stops. So my thing that I'm telling my sixth graders, and it's really just about keep clapping a rhythm, but it's about life. Never stop, because time never stops. And so that's for y'all. We have all had our days. We've had our days that sometimes it's like, can I keep going? The answer is yes, you can. And you will. Because ain't nobody, we ain't got time to be taking care of nobody. So you better get yourself up. That comes from me. Look, you can call Lauren, call Michael. Don't call me. Because I'm the friend that would say, get up, let's go. Let's go outside. Let's go take a run. Let's go do something because life keeps going. So take that. That's my little words of wisdom for everybody that's listening right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many different, and this is kind of what this show is about. You know, is about us relating these ideas of like musical ideas, but into life, into what is currently going on in the world, and everything. And it's so fun, like finding these quotes in here and going, "Oh my gosh, I can completely relate that to this," or "This makes complete sense in this way." There's just one quote that says, "Music is the one art form that, rather than copying the outer shell representation, mimics the operation of the will itself." Whoa. What does that even mean? Like, what it's basically saying, it's not saying, "Oh, let me just look at this painting and then put it into music." Because a lot of times that happens, like impressionist. I mean, I just kind of described what impressionistic music is, but not really, right? Because no, but in a sense, it's saying that music is in itself. I mean, the will itself. I guess this is why, if this was an idea of Wagner, that is why he did not like the idea of a leitmotif, because he was like, "How dare you say that this music itself only exists for the purpose of dramatics or in that context of that." Which it is completely bringing music to the forefront, making it in itself like a creation of itself, which makes sense because I listen to movie scorings all the time, all the time. I will go, "Oh my gosh, I have to put that on my playlist. Like that is amazing." And that is kind of when you're finally you're seeing the layers of what art truly is, and you're saying, "Oh, now I like this specific part. I'm gonna take it out." Like Pride and Prejudice, please go listen to that soundtrack. Oh my god, I've been blasting that like all this week. Is that soundtrack? And I know we all have our favorite soundtracks, but that is a huge part of uh, film for me, is the music that goes along with it. And while it's like, oh yeah, when you hear, like I said earlier, whenever I hear Leia's theme, I'm immediately going to go, "Where is Leia?" But I'll hear that, I will listen to that in itself. I don't have to be looking at her. I will listen to it like, this itself is just some amazing orchestration. It is ridiculous. And so I think that's kind of what that quote. And if you guys have anything to say about that, like definitely jump in.
I think Wagner really saw music as a whole experience, as a whole version of music. So to think about somebody is going to take this one little section and give it a whole name that has nothing to do with music, is only for dramatic effect. I see where he kind of felt like that's a disgrace. Like it's part of my music. It is part of the whole thing. Um, but I will say, giving the name of a leitmotif, I mean, I'm glad we do, because now when I hear Harry Potter's, or it's really Hedwig's theme, I'm like, where something heroic just happened. Harry just got done off of one of his adventures. Him, Hermione, and everybody else, they just got done. So like that brings to me, or Superman. When you hear Superman's theme song, you're like, Superman somewhere. I don't know where he's at. Okay, Michael. When you hear Batman's theme song, or when you hear the Jaws theme song, you know, oh my God, there's a shark somewhere. Don't know it's swimming around the water, but we know it's there. So I don't necessarily think it's for dramatic effects. I think it is still for music. I think it's emphasizing something, but it's still a part of that soundtrack. My thing for everybody listening is to go listen to the movie soundtracks. Take a listen to Harry Potter's soundtrack, and listen to all the songs. Sometimes I like to just listen to the Christmas music from Harry Potter. It just puts me in a such a good mood. But go listen to the full Jaws soundtrack. Go listen to Star Wars and everybody. Also, a lot of the things that we just said is by like one person, John Williams, because he's known for that. He's known for the big film scores. But there's other people doing it. Avengers is not by John Williams, but go listen to that. You would be amazingly surprised. One of my favorite songs is actually from Saving Private Ryan, and it's called Hymn to the Fallen. And when you listen to the song, the way it affects you is like, whoa. Also, there's the theme song from Schindler's List. So sad. I would never forget. I was in 10th grade, and I was actually in my AP World History class. Um, and my teacher, she was playing it, and I was like, "What is this?" Like, oh my god! Like, and she was like, "This is from Schindler's List." I was like, "This was made for a movie?" Like that sounded like a song that was just made for a classical setting. I would have never thought that was like from a movie. So some of the greatest music is movie scores that have leitmotifs, that have motifs to really engage you there. So come on, give film scores their proper due.
I think another reason why he didn't like the leitmotif whole thing or why he didn't do this or that is because he is all about the full experience. Like, that's why he didn't do like symphonic works, or maybe he did, but they weren't as popular. Is I believe he was like, everything needs the full experience, like visual, audio, auditory, whatever it's called. Like everything has a certain place. And the leitmotifs, as we call them now, they were placed there on purpose, not as a leitmotif, but in his musical idea in his brain, he was like, this has to be there. This completes the entire like thing. And that's why, like, when people watch movies, we get stuck just watching movies, and all the musicians listen to the score, and some of the non-musicians, they listen to the score too, while it's happening. But a lot of people subconsciously, the way a lot of our music, popular music that we listen to now, we just focus on one thing. We don't focus on the entire picture. But I'm pretty sure if you go back and watch movies like Saving Private Ryan, all of the Lord of the Rings, aka modern Ring cycle, like Star Wars, Harry Potter, all these, if you watch them and listen to the entire thing, the movie will entirely change. And it subconsciously changes you as you watch it, because music will change. Like, it'll go from happy during the Christmas thing to, yeah, Voldemort just came back. Be scared. So that's like my thing, is why Wagner like didn't really like the way the leitmotifs is. The only thing that can make sense in my head was he's like, because it's the entire picture, and that's what he's always focused on.
And I think that kind of brings us back to the just the fact that Wagner was just a genius when it came to writing these full dramatic works, these cycles, these operas, and how people say there's nothing else that can match works like the Ring cycle because of that level. And there's a quote, or I think Niche said he understood when musicians would say, "I hate Wagner, but I can't stand any other music." And I was like, yeah, yep. And what they mean by "I hate Wagner" is they hate his beliefs that were rooted in hatred for other people for reasons that they could not change. The Nazi ideas, even though that wasn't necessarily a thing then, but they knew. I think in that they were saying they knew how to separate the man from the art, and they were saying, "I don't care for him, but this is all I can listen to because this is the only thing that I can relate to on the human level, and I guess intellectual wise and everything. Anything else, they were like, no, it's not. It doesn't bring it to that point again." So, with this, oh, Anthony, you have anything?
Oh no. Keep going.
with this, it kind of just brings us back to the perspective of, and where I'm sure later on there are going to be even more talks of like the just things that we don't really like talking about with him, but it's a part of it. It is a part of it, so we're going to talk about it. And so, but it makes us remember also the fact that there's a reason why we are still talking about him to this day. People during his time said, "Oh, he's going to be forgotten about," or his music is going to be looked at as like it's going to be disrespected and just like shamed because of his views. And it's not by everyone, not by a because obviously if it was a majority thing, we wouldn't be still performing it. It wouldn't be still on accessible online. Performances wouldn't still be happening of it. So it's very much talking like you have to, for the sake of art, there's some compromise. There is some compromise.
And for the people who are listening, this topic is very problematic. As we said in episode 1, because see, I ain't even got words, but it is something that I will say we need to talk about, because I do know some people who have completely written off Wagner. Like, I would never listen to him. I'll never play him. I'll never do this. Like, no, like there's a person who I know who never gonna do Wagner. And I completely understand. If it was modern music, I'll completely write them off too. But I don't know. There's something about this that is just like something keeps pulling me back, and it goes back to the quote that Lauren said of hate the person, but something beautiful about the music keeps going. And I think that's our big topic for this whole book. So I think while we continue to read, we're going to try to answer that question of, can we separate the artist from the art? That'll be our big question. We'll love to hear what you have to think. So please drop a comment. Go ahead and comment on our Facebook, on our Instagram, on our Twitter, YouTube. Oh, also, we are officially on Apple Music. So go ahead and go follow us over there.
iTunes Store, you will find the episodes on there.
Yes. So please, relative pitch, Apple, go do there. Go Spotify, go to YouTube, go like us, subscribe everywhere we're on. So please, please, please find us. Everything will be linked down below, or either on our Facebook page. So please, please, please give us a great thing there.
Also, just wanted to mention, of course, this is a very thick book, and there are a lot of pages to this. We're not going to be able to unpack everything of each chapter in an hour and 15 or a half minute podcast. This is something that if you truly want to know everything that is within this, go buy it. It is on Amazon. It's hardcover. We love to see it. It's beautiful.
Our thumbnail. Stay tuned.
But seriously, like we're pulling certain things out to talk so that we have talking points, but there's a lot of amazing things within this. Please, if you really want to know about more specific things in this, we really encourage you to buy it.
Please.
And I encourage everybody, you can see in our first 3 episodes now, we're going to do Wagner, a topic of music / life, and the next chapter. So next week, we have a chapter on music. If you ever want us to talk about a certain thing in music, if you already bought the book or plan to buy the book and you're reading, like, say, chapter 5, and we're like maybe a week out, or it's this week of and it's before we record, please ask us the questions if you want us to go over certain topics, because we would love to hear any feedback and what you want us to talk about. Someone could say, I want y'all to talk about coffee. Okay, I love coffee.
Please. I mean, we love interacting with everybody. So tell us for the weeks that it's like open and we're not talking about the book, it can be about classical music, it can be about popular music, it can be about movies. Who knows? But, we'll love to hear what you have to say. We love that. We love that.
I think we're gonna say goodbye.
Yeah, I think we're gonna say goodbye. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to all of us. This is Relative Pitch. You can follow all of us on our socials. Everything will be linked below. So thank you, everybody, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.